Joining me now is Andrew Williams, the CEO of New Pacific Metals. So good to see you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Now, you've called this year for the company pivotal in that you're advancing your two main projects in Bolivia. Let's focus on Silver Sand, the flagship to begin with. You've called this in the past one of the best primary silver projects in the world. What makes it different? What makes it unique?
Yeah, a great question, Mark. And just you're right. This will be a pivotal year for us. And where we're coming from is that we're putting out two technical reports, one on each of our projects: a pre-feasibility study at our more advanced Silver Sand project, and a PEA study at our Carangas project. And in parallel to those technical studies, we're also advancing our development activities at both projects, which includes ongoing efforts with community engagement, baseline environmental work, continuing to deepen our relationships with government officials and so forth. So, for us, it's a very important year to continue laying a very strong foundation for our two main large scale silver discoveries. And turning to your specific question about silver sands, like you're right, it's a high grade open pittable silver project. Typically you think open pit low grade, underground high grade, but in our instance we have high grade and open pit um, in a with scale. So the silver sand project in each of its first 4 years can produce up to 16 million ounces of silver per year. And the Silver Sand project is located in the southern part of Bolivia in the province of Potosí, which is a traditional mining area. I like to call it the Nevada of Bolivia. And we put a PEA study out in 2023 January, so just over a year ago, and showing very strong economics, including a 39% after-tax IRR and a plus $700 million after-tax net present value. And so we're now moving that forward into a pre-feasibility study, and we're very excited to be sharing the results of that study with everyone by the middle of this year.
And then what can you tell us about Carangas? You mentioned the PEA coming sometime later this year, maybe midway part of the year or so.
Yeah, Carangas is a super exciting project, and uh, honestly, I don't think we're seeing much or any value for it in our share price, and we're going to change that this year. So, just to rewind the clock, in September last year, we published our initial resource on the project, demonstrating that the Carangas mineral endowment is over 500 million ounces of silver equivalent. And so this year, we're working on putting a PEA study out that we're expecting by the middle of this year that will put economic parameters on the project for the first time, as well as optimize it. We've got a lot of metal at Carangas, but it's not just one homogeneous blob. There are very important attributes, some high grade pockets, a lot of that right near surface. So what we're going to do is put our minds together, us and our independent consultants, and publish the results of this PEA study in the also in the middle of this year, targeting roughly June.
All right, very good. Now, Andrew, from a shareholder perspective, you've got Silver Corp in there with 27% ownership, Pan American at nearly 12%. So a couple of well-known players. And I guess an obvious question is, well, what's the plan here with New Pacific Metals? Are you looking to prove out the assets and get them to a point where they're nice and burnished with a bow on them, and one of those two companies or somebody else comes knocking? Or is everything on the table in terms of maybe trying to get it to production yourself along with a partner or two?
Yeah, I mean, as you pointed out, we are very lucky, very blessed to have two strong strategic investors, both that know the silver industry very well, and also the country, in particular Pan American Silver. They've been operating successfully in Bolivia for the last 20 years, and so both of our partners, Silver Corp and Pan American Silver, they have a lot of resources to bear to help us advance our projects forward. And clearly that's beneficial from a financial point of view. We've got very solid backstop for financing in today's really tough market. And in September that recently passed, we took in 35 million Canadian in a market where there's really not a lot of money that's being raised. Only the highest quality companies are able to bring in capital, and we were one of them. But not just financing, but in terms of technical and project development support. And so, what this means for us strategically down the road, um, our focus doesn't change. It's to continue advancing our projects to the point where our board can make an informed construction decision that is really in the interest of all shareholders. I think, no matter what our end game is, whether we sell this out to the highest bidder or we go about trying to finance and build these projects on our own, our strategy in the near term doesn't change. And that's a laser focus with continuing to progress these projects through both the technical studies and the environmental permitting process.
All right, makes sense to me. Now let's talk about Bolivia a little bit, maybe for those who don't know that well. How would you describe the geology, number one, and also the fact that there really is a long historical mining culture there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean that's for sure. I think one of the greatest strengths of Bolivia is its deep mining heritage. It goes back to really the first real documented evidence of organized mining, 1545, when the one of the greatest silver deposits in the world's history was discovered, Cerro Rico de Potosi, which is like 40 kilometers away from our silver sand project as the crow flies. And so that mining culture has, it's almost 500 years old in the country. And if you look at the Potosi department where our silver sand project is, the Aurora department, that's the southwestern portion of the country bordering Chile, and that really makes up the epicenter of Bolivia's mining industry. There's this Bolivian tin belt that stretches for 900 kilometers and contains a number of world-class gold, silver, iron, zinc, tin, and lead deposits, such as Cerro Rico, Pan American Silver's San Vicente operation, and the very large and profitable San Cristobal mines that's been in production now for over 15 years. It's a 50,000 ton a day open pit silver and zinc mine. And in the early 2000s, I mean, be upfront about it, Bolivia went through, sorry, I should say the mid 2000s, Bolivia did go through some challenges like every industry or every country in the sector. They seem to sort of ebb and flow, windows open and close. But it's very much our view that a window is opening and open here for us in Bolivia. And so we're going to continue pressing forward to bring on stream the next round of great mines in the country. And so that's, we've got a very talented team that we've built over this past couple of years as we've transitioned from an exploration into a development focused company. And we're really excited and really proud of what we're going to accomplish in the country.
Andrew, you hinted at the fact that it is a difficult market, a tough market for a lot of junior exploration companies for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is trying to raise money, which you managed to do very effectively. But the silver price is in this range and has been for a long time, low 20s, mid 20s, and it can't seem to bust out of that. So what's your view of the price of silver right now and market sentiment in general?
Yeah. Price of silver hanging in there very strong. Market sentiment more or less in the toilet to not to be too poetic about it. Um, and so I mean this is just the environment that we're in, right? If you can go get 5% parking your money in a savings account, it's just naturally silver equities have to compete with a more challenging environment, and so we're seeing mining stocks decouple themselves from the fundamental metal, which is holding up really well in spite of these headwinds, and a tremendous opportunity for investors in this environment with a very strong macro backdrop for silver. I mean, I think about silver as half of its demand coming from investment demand and half coming from industrial, roughly. And the investment side, I think we all know the story with the pressures facing fiat currencies globally, the pressure on investment returns, et cetera, all a very strong backdrop on the investment side. But the industrial side of silver is also really interesting as we see the most important story that we see is this ongoing trend for rapid growth year on year with uptake for solar panels. Like silver is the best electrical conductor of any element on the periodic table, and in a world that is increasingly being electrified, it's a very I mean, the conditions for silver, both on the investment side and the industrial side, are very strong. And again, when we see that decoupling, it's a tremendous opportunity for investors, and we're very fortunate, again, going back to the financing that we did, where we're not in a position where we need to raise funds in the near term. So that just allows us to weather the storm, continue to advance our technical studies, and do what we do to drive real value in these assets, which we believe in the long run will be properly reflected in our share price.
All right, Andrew, sum it up for us if you could. You've got those two big catalysts coming, the PFS for Silver Sand, PEA for Carangas. How would you summarize the overall investment case? So what's the message to investors?
Yeah, I mean, this year is going to be a big year for us as we continue to drive value by advancing our two main projects, Silver Sand and Carangas. We've got a balance sheet that's fit for purpose. We don't need to access new sources of capital in the near term in this tough environment. And look at Silver Sand, we're going to put reserves in place for the first time, and demonstrate the economics of our large resource at Carangas with that PEA. And when we step back at the end of this year, we'll have two world-class assets that have been continually advanced by our team in a jurisdiction with a very strong mining heritage, with a increasingly growing and strengthening macro backdrop to silver. So we're really optimistic here and are excited for what lies ahead of us this year.
Well, thanks for the insight today on New Pacific Metals, Andrew. Great to talk to you, and we'll do it again down the road.
Thanks very much, Mark. I enjoyed the chat.
All right. Andrew Williams, CEO of New Pacific Metals. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.